Well, June is Kentucky's birthday month, and the Frazier Museum is ready with a gift. Kentucky Wide is a podcast dedicated to our community. Kentucky Wide features stories from Jessamine County to Jefferson County and everywhere in between, showcasing some of the ways Kentucky has reached the world. Kentucky Wide is an audio celebration of the Commonwealth, and the Frazier releases episodes every 2 weeks through the summer of 2025. Joining me in studio with more is podcast Mick Sullivan and writer Simon Miners. So great to see you guys.
Great to see you. Thanks for having us.
Well, tell us about this podcast. When I got the press release in my email, I'm like, oh, this is so fun and so new and so needed because this is where the world meets Kentucky. So what a better platform to do it on?
That's right. In a museum, everything is very visual and very static, which is, it's great. It's a great way to learn. But we were looking for ways to tell stories in new ways. And through our 120 Counties project, we've been in contact with every county in the Commonwealth. And we've uncovered some stories that were just deserving of more, like really robust storytelling. So we've found at least, I don't know, 12 of our favorites for the first season. And Simon's written some great ones, and it's a team effort. There's about 7 people involved.
Wow.
And it's been a really great project.
So you have 2 out right now. So tell us about the first one and then the one that was just released.
Yeah, so the first episode has one of my favorite Kentucky stories ever. The first episode covers 3 stories of black photographers from Kentucky. Bud Dorsey from here in Louisville. Moneta Sleet, who very famously took the photo of Coretta Scott King at Martin Luther King's funeral, which won a Pulitzer Prize. But my favorite story comes from Jessamine County, and it's the Smith brothers. So from Nicholasville, Morgan and Marvin Smith were twins, and they grew up in Jim Crow, Kentucky. They wound up in Harlem at the, really smack dab in the middle of the Harlem Renaissance, and did a number of artistic things, but they actually became the official photographers for the Apollo Theater, which meant they were taking pictures of Ella Fitzgerald and Duke Ellington and Langston Hughes. I mean, it's just amazing the people that they came into contact with.
Oh, wow, and these folks were right here in Kentucky. There are so many incredible people. We're looking at some pictures right now of them.
Yeah, there's Bud.
Yeah, there he is. And so what is the one that was just released?
So this one ties into our Love and Marriage exhibit.
That's right. Yeah, Love and Marriage, our newest exhibition at the museum is called Davis Jewelers Love and Marriage. It's a history of love, courtship, and marriage in the state of Kentucky. We've got wedding dresses going back to the 1800s. We have, I think, 50 wedding dresses and tuxedos and little flower girl and ring bearer garments, all these wonderful wedding traditions and apparel on display from different cultural traditions. But our newest episode features a couple of segments about love and marriage, including one on Madam Glover. So you've covered a lot of fashion and women's couture and stuff here on Great Day Live, but I don't know if you know this, but back in the 1880s, 1890s, in the Gilded Age, Louisville was a hub for women's fashion because of this one woman, Madam Glover. She was this Irish immigrant who lived in the Limerick neighborhood, kind of near Old Louisville, which is where a lot of working class Irish families lived. And she moved here when she was a teenager and became a seamstress and opened her own business in the 1880s and 90s, and she just took off. She had a garment factory where she was directing 100 women and girls to make all these dresses, and she would go to Paris every year and learn the newest styles, and then she would import those back to Louisville. And people all over the U.S. were like, I got to get the latest fashions. I got to go to Louisville, Kentucky, the Paris of America. Or,
really?
They wanted to get all their garments made here. So this was a short-lived time, and it was due largely to the prestige of this one dressmaker. But a lot of her work was working with brides, right? Like making bridal trousseaux, which was popular then. And so the impact we had on women's fashion and wedding and bridal fashion was key. And that's part of Kentucky history we want to tell both in our exhibit and in this new podcast.
Well, and a lot of people look to Louisville for derby fashion. And so you wouldn't think that way back when we were almost like a bridal capital of America.
Well, Madam Glover's rise to prominence happened to coincide with the Derby. So you're right on. I mean, a lot of people would order dresses from her in advance of arriving in Louisville. And then when they arrive, they go for their final fitting. And if they were in a Madam Glover dress at the Derby, they were well dressed.
Oh, yes. Dressed to the nines way back when.
But we like a lot of this content to dovetail with what we're doing in the museum. So you can listen to this latest episode on Love and Marriage and hear about Madam Glover. Then you can come down to the museum and see 3 of her garments on display, including the last one that she ever made. She came out of retirement in 1913 to make this wedding dress, and we have it on display currently. We have other content. We have the oldest Civil War monument in America. That's going to be the subject of an upcoming episode of this podcast, Kentucky Wide. So you get to experience learning about the museum at home, listening to your AirPods, and you get to come in and see some of these objects in person.
Well, what a cool way to just experience history, not just listen to it, not just learn it, but actually experience it when you're walking through the multi-levels of the Frazier Museum. And so you kind of hit on one that's upcoming, but what's that next one that's coming out? Can you give a little tease?
The next episode is about the story that I'm working on right now, just finishing up the editing, is about this woman named Henrietta Wood, who was actually enslaved but freed. And then on a trip across the river from Ohio back to Kentucky, she was abducted and spent another 10 or so years in slavery, but made it back to Ohio and sued the man successfally who had abducted her. So it was this really watershed story of perseverance and dedication to her freedom, and the result and the impact that it had on her son and his children was profound. He was a Pullman porter, became a lawyer. Her grandchildren were jazz musicians and educators, and largely because of her commitment to her own freedom. So that's the next episode. Then the episode after that I'm really excited about too covers two Kentucky giants. So there's Jim Porter from Louisville, who was like 7'8", but less famous is a man named Martin Van Buren Bates, who was 7'9", and he married a woman who was 7'11".
What?
Yeah.
How can you find someone taller?
Exactly.
The craziest thing about Martin Van Buren Bates is that he voluntarily joined the infantry for the Confederacy, and it's like, you are a walking target.
Yeah,
if you're 7'9" and you're like, put me on the battlefield. Like, what?
It's a bad idea. Bad idea.
Even if you're like in the trenches ducking or something, like you're still gonna see.
Exactly. So we have all these there's stories of struggle and perseverance, and there's some, comedic aspects, but there's notable figures from communities that you wouldn't have think of, like those photographers from Harlem. When you think of the Harlem Renaissance, you were name dropping those figures, Ella Fitzgerald and Langston Hughes. You don't think of their connection to Kentuckians, but there are these two twin brothers from Jessamine County, like horse country Kentucky, who are taking all these historic photos. Yeah. And Kentucky is right in the mix of a lot of this great American history.
It truly is really incredible that you're really uncovering these stories. And so how hard was it to narrow those stories down?
We get excited, clearly, about stuff like this. So the beauty of a podcast is that we can work in seasons. So we're committed to the first season, and then we're laying the groundwork for subsequent seasons. So if something doesn't make the cut, it's going to show up later, right? Yeah. And the beauty of this, digging through history is that there's always going to be somebody. There's always going to be a story to tell. There's always going to be something amazing to discover, or just important to share, right? So it was really, it wasn't that hard, honestly, because we know that we're going to get to more, right?
Yes, and so we are just so excited to wait till the new ones to come out. So thank you so much for stopping by today.
Yeah,
thank you. Great to be here.
So you can find this podcast on all platforms, including Apple and Spotify, so wherever you get your podcast. But just to learn more about the Frazier Museum, just go to fraziermuseum.org to learn more.